The sun was already low over the Texas horizon, spilling its molten gold across the fields when Samuel Carter adjusted his hat and squinted down the dusty trail that wound toward his ranch. He had been waiting all day, waiting, really, for months, for the creak of wagon wheels and the hope they carried. A letter tucked safely in his vest pocket was folded thin from how many times he had opened it, read it, and prayed over it. The words inside were from a woman he had never met, a mail-order bride who had agreed to travel across states to begin a life with him. Samuel was a cowboy in every sense, tall, broad-shouldered, weathered from the years of cattle drives, and quieter than most. Life on the range had taught him how to work, how to endure, but not how to fill the silence that echoed in the empty farmhouse after the day's chores were done. That silence was what drove him to write a letter to an agency in Chicago, what made him brave enough to ask for companionship. He wasn't a man who longed for riches or fame, he only wanted someone to share his sunrises, his prayers before supper, and his dreams that sometimes felt too heavy to carry alone. The wagon finally appeared in the distance, dust rising behind its wheels like a promise. Samuel's heart pounded. He straightened his shirt, brushed the dust from his boots, and took a step forward as the horses slowed near his fence. He expected one woman, nervous and hopeful, stepping down into her new life. Instead, two figures appeared, two women, nearly identical, with the same dark hair tumbling from bonnets, the same wide eyes scanning the horizon with awe and fear. Samuel froze. The driver hopped down, tipped his hat, and muttered, "Got your bride, mister. But looks like she didn't travel alone." The women stepped forward in unison, clasping hands as if to steady each other. They looked so alike Samuel felt dizzy, like the sun had played a trick on his eyes. One finally spoke, her voice gentle but steady. "My name is Clara," she said. "And this is my twin sister, Grace." Grace smiled shyly, though her eyes brimmed with something deeper, weariness, perhaps, or sorrow. Samuel touched his hat, unsure what words were proper in such a moment. "I was expectin' one bride," he managed. Clara glanced at Grace before answering. "I know. And I am the one who answered your letter. But Grace, well, I couldn't leave her behind." The story tumbled out in pieces over supper that night. Their parents had died the winter before, leaving the sisters alone in a city that offered them no kindness. Clara had seen Samuel's advertisement in the paper, his simple words about honesty, hard work, and wanting a family, and something in them had sounded like hope. She had written back, believing that if Samuel was as kind as his letter suggested, he might also open his door to her sister. Samuel listened in silence, his fork paused halfway to his mouth. He had asked for a bride, not for a pair of sisters. But as he studied the two women across the table, the firelight flickering over their tired faces, he felt the familiar weight of loneliness shift inside him. Perhaps God had given him not what he asked for, but what he needed. Days turned into weeks. Clara and Grace both worked hard on the ranch, Clara with a quiet determination, Grace with a laughter that carried across the fields like music. They mended clothes, cooked meals, helped Samuel with the livestock, and turned the barren house into something warm and alive. Yet Samuel knew he could not delay the truth forever. He had promised marriage to one, not both, and soon enough, a choice would have to be made. One evening, after the day's work, Samuel found Grace sitting on the porch steps, her face lit only by the moon. She was silent until he sat beside her, then whispered, "Clara loves you, you know. She won't say it, but I see it. Every time you walk into a room." Samuel shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't a man who spoke easily of feelings. "And you?" he asked softly. Grace's eyes glistened. "I never expected to feel anything out here. I only came because I couldn't let her face the world alone. But somewhere between your prayers at supper and the way you fix every broken hinge in this house like it matters, I began to care too. More than I should." Her confession hung heavy in the night air. Samuel's heart ached, two women, each bound to him in different ways, and both deserving of happiness. He wanted to be the kind of man who could give it, but he was only one man. The days that followed were strained. Clara sensed her sister's silence, though she did not know the reason. Samuel worked harder than ever, as if sweat and dust could keep his heart from splitting. Finally, one stormy night when the wind howled against the windows, Samuel gathered both sisters in the parlor. "I need to speak plain," he said, his voice rough. "I asked for a bride because I was lonely. Clara, you answered that call, and I meant to honor it. But I've come to care for both of you, though not in the same way." The sisters exchanged a glance, their bond stronger than words. Clara took Grace's hand. "I know," Clara said softly. "I've seen it. And I won't stand in the way of her happiness, Samuel. She has always given me everything, her time, her laughter, even her share of bread when we were children. If she loves you, then it's her turn to receive." Grace shook her head fiercely, tears brimming. "No, Clara. You're the brave one, the one who wrote to him. This was your dream. I would never take that from you." Samuel felt torn apart, like the storm outside had cracked something open inside him. He realized then that the answer was not about choosing one woman over the other, it was about building something greater than himself. He stood, placed his hands gently on both their shoulders, and spoke from the deepest place of his heart. "You both came here searching for a home. Maybe I asked for a bride, but what I truly needed was a family. If you'll both stay, not as rivals, not as burdens, but as my sisters in Christ, then this house will never be empty again." The words silenced the storm inside the room. Clara sobbed quietly, Grace pressed her face into Samuel's arm, and for the first time since he'd sent that letter months ago, Samuel felt a peace that no solitude could give. The choice was made, not in favor of romance, but in favor of compassion, dignity, and love that stretched wider than marriage vows alone. Weeks later, Samuel did marry Clara, quietly, beneath the cottonwood tree by the creek. But Grace stood at her side, radiant as ever, and when Samuel looked at her, it was not with regret but with gratitude. She remained on the ranch, not as an outsider, but as family, her laughter weaving through the house and her hands lifting every burden with grace. Years passed. Children were born, and Aunt Grace was as beloved as any mother. Together, the three of them built a legacy of kindness, proving to everyone who visited the Carter Ranch that family was not only by blood or by law, it was by the courage to open one's door wider than expected. And in the quiet moments, when the sun sank behind the hills and Samuel sat on the porch with Clara at his side and Grace humming softly nearby, he knew the truth of it all: sometimes God does not answer prayers the way we imagine. Sometimes He gives us double the blessing, hidden first in confusion, revealed only when we choose compassion over possession. Samuel had asked for one bride. Instead, he was given a family. And that made him the richest cowboy in all of Texas.